You didn't build a fence.
That's what Clay was.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending the May 11, 2020 Planning Commission meeting in this very unconventional setting. We're holding this meeting virtually with the Planning Commission members and staff not present together in the meeting room so that we can meet the legal requirements of the meeting and help ensure the health and safety of all involved. Before we begin, I'll introduce members and explain the procedure. Mr. Bill Turbines represents the Valley District. Mr. Steve Kidd represents the Buchanan District. Mr. Brandon Nicely represents the Fincastle District. Mr. Sam Foster represents the Blue Ridge District. Mr. Ray Sloan is the officio member, and he represents the Buchanan District. Mr. Chris Daddick, the County Attorney. Ms. Nicole Pendleton, Director of Community Development. Mr. Drew Pearson, Senior Planner, Mr. Peter Boyce, Planner, Laura Good, Administrative Assistant, and I am Hiawatha Nicely, Chairman, and I represent the Amsterdam District. To expedite business, the Planning Commission has established the following procedures. Staff will read the agenda items and make presentations. Then the applicant or their representative may make their presentation. Presentations may be made remotely due to the COVID-19. There may be questions and comments from the Planning Commission. Afterwards, citizen comments will be taken. After that, we will bring the applicant or their representative back to address any concerns. The public hearing will then be closed, and we will discuss the matter amongst ourselves and vote on that particular agenda item. The Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, who will make the final decision on rezoning, change of condition, text amendment, and special exception permit request. The Board of Supervisors will hear the text amendment for cluster development Tuesday, May 26, 2020 at 3:30 p.m. here at the Greenfield Education Training Center. The other items will be heard on Tuesday, May 26th at 6 p.m. here at the Greenfield Training Center. The Planning Commission will meet in the Kroger parking lot for a field review on Thursday, June 4th, 2020 at 3:15. Now we will consider a review approval of the April 13, 2020 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes? So moved. I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any questions, discussion, or amendments? Hearing none, those minutes will stand approved as presented. Whether you are attending in person or calling in, I know that this is something different for all of us. We greatly appreciate your flexibility and patience as we seek to receive comments during the public comment period and public hearing. This Planning Commission meeting is being conducted pursuant to and in compliance with the emergency ordinance to fulfill temporary changes in certain deadlines and to modify public meeting and public hearing practices and procedures to address continuity of operations associated with the pandemic disaster. Now, before we get started with the meeting, I want to review the process we will use. The full agenda package is posted on the Planning Commission's website for review and following along. If you go to the Botetourt County homepage and visit your government menu, you can then click on the Planning Commission website. I will take comments from those present at Greenfield first. Citizens here at Greenfield that are interested in speaking should go down to the podium on the upper level, on the upper floor, to await their turn to speak. After those present have spoken, we will receive comments from those of you who are listening on the phone. I will provide exact instructions during each hearing for making comments. If for some reason the virtual meeting system fails during the meeting, we will work to reboot and get back online in the next 15 to 30 minutes. The phone number and code will not change and can be dialed into at any time. Are there any questions or comments from the Planning Commission members? Mr. Drew Pearson will give a presentation on text amendment request regarding cluster development, and we will now open the public hearing. No, we will give that presentation. I'm going to forget about that. Drew?
Mr. Chairman, I'll leave you to transfer control to him.
Okay. Go ahead, Drew.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay? Okay, welcome to the meeting. Nice to be here with everyone. So the first item on your agenda does have to do with a text amendment on cluster development. And this will deal with text language in both the agricultural A1 and the residential R1 districts. On July 23rd of 2019, the Board of Supervisors adopted a resolution to advertise for public hearing regarding proposed text amendments. Chapter 25, Article 2, district limits generally divide lots in development centers for by right cluster development options in agriculture A1 and the R1 use district. Provisions for clustering of single-family dwellings for the purpose of preserving open space is required by the Code of Virginia. It requires localities to provide by right cluster development options in their zoning and subdivision ordinances upon a minimum of 40% of the unimproved land contained in residential and use districts. Botetourt County's zoning ordinance defines a cluster development as an arrangement of structures on 20 lots, groupings allowing spacing what would normally be permitted under requirements of lot width, with the decreased lot width or area compensated by for maintenance of equivalent open space. Data from 2 housing studies that have been conducted in Botetourt County indicated that employment and demographic trends will increase demand for more diverse housing options, such as smaller single-family developments. One recommendation of the housing policy kit prepared by Renaissance Planning was that the county should encourage more flexible zoning in appropriate locations, including the allowance for cluster residential development. The recommendation was substantiated by feedback from the development community as well as design professionals, both represented as stakeholders in the study. Staff worked with representatives from the local development community as well as the design professionals to evaluate the existing cluster development standards, resulted in recommended changes to the standards that are designed to provide increased flexibility in cluster lot layout and configuration while maintaining similar density within the underlying use districts and the preservation of open spaces. So, I'm going to read that. So when we began to look at the proposed text amendment, Division 1 Agricultural A1 Use District, what was identified by the stakeholders group and the design professionals that staff worked with is that we needed to reduce the maximum density of the average lot sizes of all lots on the tract to be reduced by 1 1/2 acres if the lots are served by either public water or sewer facilities. 2, to reduce the minimum lot size of cluster lots from 40,000 to 9,000 square feet, and reduce the minimum lot size of conservation lots from 25 to 3 acres. Keeping in mind that the overall density is still very similar to what it would be if the tract were to develop under the standard A1 type zoning. The density from a number of lot perspectives shouldn't change very much at all. Increase the maximum lot coverage of cluster lots from 20 to 50%, and the conservation lots from 5 to 20%. And to increase the number of conservation lots that may be served by private access from the already 2 to 5 lots with an increased easement width, depending on how many lots will be served off of the easement. To reduce the minimum lot width from 100 to 70 feet, and also to provide for the preservation of open space through the creation of conservation lots, open space owned or maintained by the public entity or homeowners association. It also involved section 25-75B, the building requirements, which reads cluster A1 development option. And there we would reduce the minimum front yard for cluster lots from 35 to 25 feet, reduce the minimum side yard to cluster lots from 15 to 10 feet, and correct an error to add the word accessory building to the minimum yard requirement cleanup. In section 25-7B, which is water and wastewater service, there's another update to change the word from county to Western Virginia Water Authority, since the county system is now handled by them. So in the R1 district, and these are the 2 districts that have the cluster language. So in the R1 district, section 124B, and the cluster R1 development option, we're proposing to reduce minimum lot area from 12,000 to 8,000 square feet, and increase the maximum lot coverage of the cluster lots from 20 to 50%, and the conservation lots from 5 to 20%, which is probably recognized as consistent from a coverage standpoint with the other A1 standards. Increase the number of conservation lots that we can split by the private access easement to that's already allowed, 5 with the increased easement, creating some level of consistency between the 2 districts and when the cluster option is utilized. To reduce the minimum lot width from 80 to 60 feet, reduce the minimum open space of the parent tract from 50 to 25%. And then in section 25-125C, the building requirements, reduce the minimum yard for cluster lots from 25 to 15 feet, but only when there's drive access provided by a secondary private outlet. And then under section 25-126, use limitations, again, to change the work from the county to the Western Virginia Water Authority. So, again, these were standards and suggestions that we came up with from staff working with the development community as well as some local design professionals, and really looking at a way to take what is in our ordinance, that the cluster option is already there in both of those districts, but has never really been utilized, to try to make it more functional so that it could be utilized. So at this time, you are being requested to recommend either approval, recommend approval with changes, or recommend denial of the proposed text amendment. As of before the meeting, staff hasn't received any public feedback concerning the request. I do believe that online tonight, we probably do have one of the local developers as well as one of the design professionals that are listening in, and they may have something that they would want to add, or they also, I'm sure, be happy to answer questions if you have them. And at this time, I'll be happy to entertain your questions.
Very good. Anyone have any questions before we open the public hearing?
Drew, this is Sam.
Yes.
Under A1, the conservation lots from 25 to 3 acres. I mean, if it was 25 acres?
Previously it was 25, and we had an occasion which really prompted the resolution by the board. We were looking at a Greenway Trail project, and the county was speaking with and looking at a particular piece of property where that Greenway Trail will go. The property owner was, of course, concerned if he gave up some land area, how that would impact the developability of the property. And at that time, we had started looking at the standards and ordinance as they currently are. And when we really got to diving into that, that's the reason why we believe that we've never really had anybody utilize that option as it was intended, where you kind of clustered the lots. You're not really putting in any more density on the property than what you would otherwise. But really the standards were such that it made it overly restrictive, and in a lot of cases they would probably not even be able to get as much density under the cluster option as they could have if they just developed it regularly. So that was really some of the results. So you'll see some significant changes when it comes to some of these kind of things. Keeping in mind that sometimes you might have open space that helps to keep that density down. Other times you might have a developer that doesn't really want to create the open space areas, and they might do the larger conservation lots. Well, the lots are still going to be big, but they're going to be individually owned and can't be further subdivided. So that your density at the end of the day is really not very much different at all. It's very close to the same density. The only thing in the standards that should actually change that a little bit would be when you have water and sewer available to everyone, which isn't going to be that often, and it allows that density to be based on an 1.5 acre lot size versus the 2.25 acres that it currently would be. So it's a big change, but it shouldn't really change that much at all.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? If not, we'll open the public hearing, and first we'll have comments from anyone that's present here at the Greenfield Center to speak to this. And if they are, they need to go to the podium and have 3 minutes to speak.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to press control to the auditorium for a second, please hold. Auditorium, you're
Commission, I would like to make sure that you can hear so that the citizens may address the panel and hopefully they can be heard. Can you verify that you can hear me clearly?
Does everybody hear well?
Yes.
Good. Steve? Good. All right, we can hear. Do you have anyone to speak to this issue?
Does anybody wish to speak to this issue? Please come down.
What do you say?
Yeah, you
Do
need
you wish to speak on this issue?
I can't make it out.
If anybody would like to speak on this issue, could you please come down here?
On the, which issue you talking about?
He was speaking about just now.
Cluster development ordinance amendment.
Do they have anybody?
Cluster development.
What?
Cluster development.
Do we have anyone at the podium to speak?
Good?
Oh, I wanted to speak on the wind energy, that's all.
Well, that will come up soon, sir. At this time, no, sir.
If there are no comments from anyone here, is there anyone on the line that would like to speak to this?
For anybody who's on the line, if you would like to speak, please press 5* on your phone and you'll be unmuted.
Again, this is a public hearing on clusters.
Mr. Chairman.
Hearing no one speaking to that, we'll close the public hearing and discuss this issue among ourselves. I think Drew's done a good job of presenting the changes before our commission. Any comments from any of you? Sam?
No, I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm good.
Good. All right, do I have a motion to move forward with this?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion. I move that the text amendments to Chapter 25, Article 2, District Regulations generally and regulations and as included in this memo be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors with the recommendation of approval. This recommendation is made on the basis that the requirements of Section 25.581.1 the zoning ordinance have been satisfied and proposal will serve the public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and is good zoning practice.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Second. Any question or discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Nicely? Mr. High Nicely?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Brandon Nicely?
Yes.
Mr. Kidd? Mr. Thurman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving along, Ms. Nicole Pimpton will give a presentation on the text amendment request regarding utility scale wind energy. Nicole will mention that the report prepared by staff contains 2 public hearing items, but that they should be considered separately. Ms. Pimpton?
Thank you. And, Mr. Pearson, if you can pull up the presentation, or we need to transition to that? Mr.
I'm transitioning right now. Mr. Pearson, please, go ahead and, accept the role.
Okay.
Ms. Pendleton, you can proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the Commission, those in the audience, and those on the phone. We have 2 separate actions that are being requested by the Planning Commission, And the background report that was prepared by staff does contain two separate public hearing items. So it is at the pleasure of the chairman and the planning commission. I will present specifically on the text amendment to begin with.
Please do so.
Thank you, Chairman. Next slide, please. Thank you. In 2015, the Board of Supervisors did approve, after months of staff work, several joint work sessions with the Planning Commission, several rounds of public input, a community meeting, and web-based surveys. The Board of Supervisors did approve a new ordinance to allow it to issue or refuse special exception permits with appropriate conditions for utility-scale wind energy systems as part of the zoning ordinance. The purpose of the SCP process is to allow the Board of Supervisors, with the advice of the Planning Commission, to impose reasonable conditions on proposed development that has greater impacts than uses permitted by right. The ordinance provides for general standards that must be met by every project. It also authorizes the board to impose other requirements that provide for specific considerations based on the individualized components of each project. With the adoption of that ordinance, one general standard that exists for every potential project is a maximum height limitation of 550 feet. On October 31st, 2019, Apex Clean Energy and Jerry Fraley, property owner, filed a petition with the Board of Supervisors asking it to initiate action to amend the general performance standards in the county's ordinance. Their petition letter states that wind energy technologies, equipment, and efficiencies have changed since the Rocky Ford SCP was approved in January 2016. The request involves three components of the ordinance: the maximum total height of the turbines, the maximum height of substations and points of interconnection, and the period of validity. On December 19, 2019, staff presented a petition as presented by Apex to the Board of Supervisors. After public input and some discussion, the board directed staff to explore all components of the ordinance and deferred a separate but related action to procure an independent consultant to review the SCP application. In order to provide an opportunity for the public to offer comments on the existing ordinance and provide recommendations, staff held a community meeting on February the 10th to gather feedback on the existing ordinance at Eagle Rock Elementary School. Approximately 45 people attended the meeting. Staff also utilized an online survey form to seek feedback, gathering 95 responses between February 6th and the 23rd. In addition, staff has also captured feedback from phone calls, emails, and other written correspondence related to these amendments, as well as the application for a change of conditions to the previously granted SCP. At the February 25th board meeting and the March 9th Planning Commission meeting, staff presented the results of the survey and feedback received to date. This was informational and no action was taken on the text amendment, as they were still under review by staff. After reviewing public comments, other ordinances, and survey results, staff proposed draft amendments. Next slide, please. That were provided in your report. They are a reflection of the applicant's request, but they are not an endorsement by staff of the maximum height currently being requested by the applicant. The Planning Commission today is being requested to make a decision on the amendment. They may choose to recommend the amendments as written. They may make a recommendation for approval with the changes that be appropriate to meet the purpose and the intent of the ordinance, or they may make a recommendation of denial to the board. Next slide, please. The components of the ordinance changes are as follows. A change of the maximum permitted height from 550 to 680 feet, as measured from the ground to the highest vertical portion of the blade when fully extended. The addition of a section related to maximum height for substations and facilities for points of interconnection, equipment and structures for substations and facilities. may not exceed 100 feet. And third, the deletion of a section related specifically to the expiration of a utility-scale wind energy special exception permit if not installed and functioning within 5 years. The rationale for the period of validity is that there's another component of the zoning ordinance which regulates special exception permits as provided to us, enabled by the state of Virginia through the state code. And it states, unless a longer period of validity is specifically approved, no special exception permit shall be valid for a period longer than 5 years from the date on which it was granted, unless a building permit is obtained and the erection or alteration of a structure is started and diligently pursued, an occupancy permit is obtained and a use commenced, or the issuance of a zoning permit. Such period of validity may be extended for good cause shown by application to the Board of Supervisors. As a condition of approval, a special exception permit may be granted for a specific period of time less than 5 years, with the expiration of the approval to occur at the termination of said period. And this section of the zoning ordinance provides a period of validity for all special exception permits and may be shortened as a condition of approval should the board wish to impose a condition related to the expiration of an SEP. Staff does recommend the deletion of this section in order to avoid conflicts with the code. Next slide. Mr. Taylor, we just lost video.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Today, as of Sunday at 6:44 p.m., in terms of the text amendment recommendations, as you know, we have instituted a new procedure to comply with and encourage the opportunity for people to provide their comments to us in advance of the meeting. That we had 16 comments that were in support of the ordinance changes and 23 in opposition. And that those numbers have changed. Obviously, we have had an influx of public comments that has come in since that point. So we've processed those and shared those with the Planning Commission, and we'll continue to do that with the Board of Supervisors. So that those numbers are not accurate reflection of. We even have been having comments coming in during the meeting. So we'll be providing an update of those numbers to the Board of Supervisors at that appropriate time. Mr. Pearson, is there one more slide potentially? I'm not sure. Thank you. So at this point in time, I believe that will conclude my presentation of the recommendations of the ordinance amendment. And what I'm happy to do is answer any questions the Planning Commission might have for me at this time. Thank you.
Gentlemen, questions? Hearing none.
Well, yeah. Ms. Pennington, is there any way we can extend them? I kind of missed that part a little bit. I'd rather see extended than deleted. I know it's maybe an issue with the zoning ordinance.
Mr. Nicely, if I understand you correctly, your question is about the deletion of that particular section?
Yeah.
Certainly. So the way that the ordinance for all SCPs currently is written is that if basically still holds true. So if no amendment to the special exception permit were filed, if no building permit were obtained, or no site plan application was filed, then it would, in 5 years, from the date of the SEP, if this one were denied, would expire. If the particular changes and conditions of the new SEP were considered, then in 5 years, if no action were taken, it would expire. So there's...
Okay, so they have approximately, what would be the expiration date now?
It would be January of 2021, if they did not file it. If they file a site plan application, then according to the other section of the code, then they would not lose their period of validity.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Hearing none, we'll move to the public hearing. As mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, the first comments will come from those who are here at the Greenfield Center. The first speaker would go to the podium. You have 3 minutes to speak. One point I'd like to make is please don't be redundant and repeat something that's already been said in order that we get to hear everybody that wants to speak. So if someone has said something that you wanted to say before you, we'll take that as good. So if the first speaker would go to the podium.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to pass control now to Young Twin, please hold.
Please.
You can hear me okay now?
Yes, please state your name and address.
I'm Eric Clonich, living at 2817 Mount Moriah Road, Eagle Rock. Members of the Planning Commission, in the Board of Supervisors meeting minutes from 23 February 2016, complete package, page 34, I paraphrase, the Board of Supervisors approved a special exception permit to construct a wind energy system with 17 conditions as attached, and that the proposal would serve the public necessity, convenience, and general welfare, and is good zoning practice. These 17 conditions are described in the same Board of Supervisors record, pages 50 and 55, where it also states these conditions are binding. I discovered these in March this year. Although required conditions for project approval, they were nowhere accessible on the county's website, only buried in the Board of Supervisors record cited until last month. These 17 conditions are still missing from the Planning and Zoning Division's Wind Energy webpage. In fact, the Wind Energy webpage has no new content since June 2015. One might suspect the county is intentionally trying to hide something. So after stumbling on these 17 required conditions, I reviewed them and found several not yet satisfied. There is no operations and maintenance plan, only an O&M plan section, summarizing general concepts with words such as should, typically done, very well likely be. This is not even an executive summary of a plan. The county states 7 explicit subcategories within the plan that must be satisfied. None has been to date. There is no emergency response plan. There is no construction traffic management plan. There is a subheading called construction management plan in the statement of intent file, but it is only 4 paragraphs with no discussion of how traffic will be managed. Hello? Apex has had 4 years to draft and refine these plans. They haven't even written them, and now they want more time? Ladies and gentlemen, it appears the county neglected oversight of these 17 required conditions until I recently rediscovered them. Apex's attempt to get by without even showing progress toward every required SEP condition reinforces their bad faith and lack of professionalism. Planning Division members, I urge you to reject Apex's request to delete the 5-year time limit and send Apex packing. This project does not serve the public necessity and is most assuredly not good zoning practice. And I would add, there is no conflict with the code if the expiration remains. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Thank you, Mr. Klein. Next speaker.
Good evening, gentlemen, ladies, and gentlemen. I'm Bill Van Velzer, 393 Cox Road, Troutville, Virginia. Yeah, what Eric said, I think he makes some very valid points. I'm concerned about the general attitude taken by the Planning Commission and the previous Board of Supervisors regarding the wisdom of allowing Rocky Forge to be completed in Botetourt County. I suspect everyone here already knows where I stand with Rocky Forge. From 2015 until now, I could have simply remained silent about this threat to a county that has no experience with the ramifications of bringing industrial scale wind turbines here. Instead, I chose to speak out because this is my home too. It's not easy to fully articulate in short sound bites the breadth and depth of my experiences with wind turbine development in Southern California beginning in the 1980s and what it's done there. My family and I and our neighbors have lived it. We lost, and now Botetourt County may be on the verge of losing too. I don't want this to happen here. I'm opposed to all 3 revisions to the Wind Energy Systems Ordinance, and Tari says, as a matter of fact, that the 680 feet are taller than the average turbine height nationally and worldwide. Furthermore, I oppose any deletion of the 5-year limit on the expiration of an SEP because it simply incentivizes a bait and switch, which we've already seen and we're in the midst of right now. Furthermore, after viewing the Rocky Forge Visit YouTube video via the Planning Commission site, I see this. A video with upbeat music inviting enthusiasm about building a now undetermined number of 680-foot tall turbines in a wilderness area. A fabulous view from 600 feet, which also reveals how far away these turbines will be seen by others. A genuine celebration of the fact that 680-foot tall turbines will be hoisted atop not 1 ridge line, but 2. Seems a little biased to me. When viewing the number of pros and cons, furthermore, on the Botetourt County Planning website, keep in mind that we don't know how many pro comments are the result of membership in good neighbor agreements, where those who sign on the dotted line are required to act as agents of a wind turbine project. We will never know this because good neighbor agreements are by their very nature secret and become null and void when participants reveal membership in one.
Thank you for your comments. 3 minutes is up.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Matt Cooper. I live at 402 Timber Ridge, Fincastle, Virginia. Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. You have heard and will hear a lot of negative propaganda requesting that you not recommend to the Board of Supervisors to amend the proposed text amendments. Several people pushing that propaganda are not even from Botetourt County. The previously mentioned 17 items that were required by Mr. Clonch, if I'm not mistaken, do not happen until the site plan review anyway. As a member of the Fraley family and a resident of the Fincastle District, I'm asking you to recommend to the Board of Supervisors that they approve the proposed text amendments to the wind energy systems in the zoning ordinance. I also request that you recommend to the Board of Supervisors to approve the change of conditions to a previously approved special exemptions permit concerning the project. If approved, the amended text amendments and the change of conditions to the SEP will be a very positive step for Botetourt County. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next, please.
Good afternoon. I'm William Stowell. I live at 2207 Old Fincastle Road in Fincastle. A deadline is not really a deadline if it has no integrity. You know, if somebody's here speaking and they go past their 3 minutes, they're gone. These people have been waiting around for 5 years. I'd like to take this time to read the comment that I spent to the Planning Commission today. I would like to go on record as strongly opposing the wind project. There are many reasons for this, but frankly, I am surprised that Botetourt County is even taking Apex so seriously. Even a casual search shows that Apex is an irresponsible corporate citizen that has manipulated one community after another. They have objectively lied on many important points, even going so far as to have one of their executives pose as a military hero in order to smooth over a deal to put a wind farm near the Niagara Falls Air Force Reserve Station. This was reported in the Union Sun and Journal, September 26, 2018. Their patterns of behavior are so predictable that Botetourt should not waste any more time and resources entertaining them. Once Apex gets paid, the communities that they do business with are left holding a bag of empty promises and legal problems. There is ample evidence that Apex has lied to one planning commission after another. What makes you think that you are so different? They will lie to you too. Apex has no offices in Botetourt County. There's no one here to be held accountable once the project tanks. More importantly, there are no legal mechanisms in place that can keep Apex honest. The state won't lift a finger because everyone knows that this wind farm is a pet project of Ralph Northam. Other communities that have been wronged by Apex, and there are many, have to resort to expensive lawsuits and legalistic maneuvers in an attempt to be made whole again. Yet no lawsuit or legal settlement can replace the natural landscape that we already have from God. Ultimately, this is not a discussion about a wind farm, but rather a discussion about a corporation that has manipulated small communities in order to enrich themselves at the expense of the taxpayer. Botetourt County deserves better than what Apex is offering. I ask that you reject any further applications from Apex and send the message that they will not be allowed to scam the citizens of Botetourt.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, my name is John Cooper. I live at 535 Hollymead Lane, Daleville. I'm a husband, father, business owner, entrepreneur, and a member of the Fraley family. Botetourt County is a tremendous resource at its disposal in Rocky Forge. As a business owner and leader, I'm tasked with finding new revenue streams to flow into my business to fund future growth opportunities and expansion. This is the perfect project for Botetourt County. You all have seen our family's property. It's 10,000 acres in the middle of nowhere. The closest landowner to any of the proposed tower locations is Mr. Henry Gum, over 1.3 miles away, and he said on the record multiple times, you can put one of those things up in my front yard. In fact, support, like Mr. Gum, for this project has outnumbered the opposition since the genesis of the project. This project's a win-win for Botetourt. Millions of dollars have already been invested and injected into this project. Botetourt County is set to receive over $16 million despite no upfront capital investment. All it takes Botetourt County is a little bit of due diligence, getting educated on the industry, and a whole lot of common sense. If Apex is installing a project of this nature in our county, it should have the latest technology, which will allow for taller turbines with a less number of turbines. I'm the next generation owner of North Mountain on this parcel. And I can assure you that our family has always been and will always be committed to conservation. Wildlife habitat that you see on North Mountain right now is good, but in the future, even after turbine installation, it will thrive. We just visited Beach Ridge in West Virginia, and would you know that there were animals around the turbines? Deer, bear. I'm asking you to approve this vote and recommend the project to the Board of Supervisors. Let's make history as the first wind farm in the state of Virginia. I truly believe you all want to make the best decisions for our county. And in my humble opinion, approving this project is a no-brainer.
Thank you for your comments.
My name is Bob Hunley. I live on 805 Berman Road, Eagle Rock. I believe these turbines will present a danger to the Tri-County area because the forest fire burns awful fast up a mountain, and when it gets to the top of the mountain, all that gas and heat ignites into an explosion. This is called a crown fire. One occurred on Sheets Mountain back in 1970 and took the life of a Big Island fella. Now, these things, in explosion, it would throw, I suppose, greasy embers up into the air. And in the wind, as tall as these things are, the upper wind currents could carry them a long way to fall down into watersheds that is full of dead ash trees that has died over the last 5-6 years due to this ash boil. Now, the ash tree got its name because it burns so hot, all you got left is white ash. Now, California went to wind energy a few decades ago. Look at 6 a.m. I mean, if California mountaintop wind turbines was a factor in all those fire disasters, last one's going to tell you is a power monopoly that had them put up there. And they had a California town named Paradise. Must have been a nice place. Now, I suppose with all the elimination of all those California middle-class rural homes, California mountain land ought to be a lot cheaper and more available. Because fire been used as a social engineering tool throughout this country's history. And last I want to say is, back in the mid-1700s, a British philosopher professor named Adam Smith predicted that the British Empire would lose their American colonies because the British Parliament allowed British merchants' pursuit of profit to overcome prudence. And you got to wreck 2 clean creeks, Mill Creek and Sinking Creek, flows out of that mountain, southern end of that mountain. And I drink out of Sinking Creek every day. You don't want to take a chance on compromising a natural gift like that. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, my name is Melissa Hunley, and I reside at 422 East Ridgeway Street in Clifton Forge. But I am the daughter of Ray and Faye Hunley. I came back here about 10 years ago because of my parents and the farm that actually isn't, they didn't just say they were conservationists, they actually were. They put the whole farm that they owned, over 856 acres and 3 miles of creek that are at the bottom of this wind farm, all in conservation easements. They didn't claim to be conservationists. they actually were. And they died not knowing what they had would be protected and what would happen. So, Botetourt County government should not allow an industry to have an open door policy by lifting the deletion of a 5-year special exemption permit. What precedents will this set for our futures? An open door policy all along, as long as money is promised. There is no guarantee of anything in our future. We should all realize this from what has happened this year. I sincerely hope the warnings are not ignored at the cost of our own peril. Sound county planning clearly cannot be based on the wishes of those who come to exploit our state's natural resources for their own financial gain. The wind industry has nothing to do with helping us get off fossil fuels or solve environmental problems. Some scientists believe these industrial machines will make certain species extinct, including our endangered golden eagles and bats. Now they are asking to build 680-foot turbines on our mountains. How environmentally responsible is that to increase the height in an area where they have already admitted they will have to curtail the 550-foot turbines because they will surely slaughter bats at alarming rates? They ignore the migratory paths of our birds and animals as though they are non-existent. As a commercial sign artist, let me explain some of the visual characteristics of wind turbines which make them challenging to integrate into landscapes. All vertical elements produce a high degree of contrast in a landscape, especially when they're taller than the surrounding trees. They will surely overrun our iconic scenic mountain views. Massive turbines on top of them may risk our scenic river status. Our home is known for its history and beautiful vistas. Might this be a socially destructive path to take? Our family farmhouse used to stood through many 100-year floods without being breached as water came within the homes and cabins. As planners, you know what blasting tops of mountains, permanent deforestation, and permanent roads due to a watershed on top of a mountain. More damaging floods will occur. What were friends?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. The time's up. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else to go to the podium?
Good evening. My name is Dave Condon, 5520 McKinney Hollow Road, Fincastle District. Before I start, did you all receive a package that I left for each of you? It contains an email sent Friday along with a May 11th letter, 5-page or 6-page. Also in that package today is an updated version dated May 11th.
We did receive that. Thank you.
All right. I will ask that each one of you, if you have the time to take a look at that, there are serious questions. Now let me start. I reviewed the original permit application and the current SEP. I found fatal flaws in it. First off, the wind ordinance under wind studies, second sentence states to the effect that all wind data should be provided or submitted. That wasn't done. And people in the gallery requested that information. They denied, saying it was proprietary. They should be made held accountable because you need to check the viability. The other things that I noted that were not included was the addition of replacement of wind blades as well as the turbines. Wind blades every 10 years, turbines every 10 to 15 years. This is a 30-year project, which if it starts will cease in 2050, long after I'm dead. Probably most of you as well. So with that, the wind blades present a problem. They're considered waste, whether they do have carcinogenic materials in it, including OSHA standard SOP warning labels that are with some of the products. But the problem is, it does not say how this is going to be transported to the transfer station. For the record, as you know, the county landfill will be capped at the end of this year because of its breaches capacity. According to also something that was not stated, the European model, starting with Germany in 2005, has now no longer accepts fiberglass. So that's a problem. Technology is here in the country. They failed to state, I believe it's Fiberglass Global Solutions, which is in my letter, has building places in Texas and Iowa that can take that. Who's going to pay for the shipping? That's not even discussed. Who's going to pay for the landfill? This momentum waste, even if it's accepted. And then because of the no landfill back in 2031, who's going to take this waste? They haven't haven't said who or what. The other thing that is concerned is how they're going to demolish these wind vanes. As you know, it's fiberglass reinforced plastics, and everything is petroleum byproduct, and again, carcinogenic. But it's up to the locality and state as to how they want to classify it.
Thank you.
Hold on, 1 second.
Thank you.
There is one other concern. It's called fiberglass airborne dust.
Your time is up.
All right. Well, please read my letter. But if you don't,
We don't
read the letter, I'm just speaking on behalf of future generations who could possibly health issues be encountered. Plus, also, you've got to tie down who's going to pay what, because you could be held liable. If people cannot pay their bills, the county will be held liable for millions.
Thank you.
By the record, I am not averse
Is there anyone
as long as it's better.
Anyone else at the podium to speak? Are there any others at the podium to speak?
Yes, please, coming. Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you very much. My name is Tenny Mudge. I reside in Rockridge County. I may be from Rockridge, but as I'm sure you are aware, the northernmost turbine is in the junction of both Botetourt, Allegheny, and Rockridge County. I have been coming to these meetings for 4 years. I planned to speak at the very first meeting, but was too afraid. I spent these 4 years learning all I can about the wind industry in Apex. I learned that the making of a turbine is not at all green. It is a highly polluting and toxic industry, that thousands of tons of cement would go into each crater that is blasted on the fragile mountaintop, that thousands of gallons of oil and hydraulic fluids are used, that ironically forests that fight climate change would be cut down for an industrial road network to climb the steep terrain and clear the ridgetop. Endangered and threatened species of bats would be killed. Federally endangered golden eagles would die as they fly these very ridges in documented migration routes. The turbines would violate the 2010 comprehensive plan, which calls to preserve scenic views and limit ridgeline development. I learned the project hurts the economics of our world-famous Blue Ridge vistas, that scenic overlooks of the National Byway of the Blue Ridge Parkway would be scarred, as demonstrated on the Apex viewshed analysis. Our beloved designated Upper James Scenic River would be too industrialized to enjoy, and the project would bisect the Virginia Outdoor Foundation designated wildlife corridor. The counties of Botetourt, Rockridge, and Allegheny would suffer vast viewshed and noise devastation, as would large tracts of land preserved by conservation easement. I learned other communities regret the day they thought wind turbines were a win-win, as they watched them spew oil, catch on fire, and produce no energy at all for long periods of time. Apex had no private sector buyer because the project wasn't viable for 2.5 years. Then they proposed that turbines need to be taller. In fact, the tallest turbines in the United States, untested on mountain ridges by a company that has never done a ridgetop installation. The Antares report does not encourage the use of massively taller turbines, and even states 680 feet would be large even by industry standards, and the permanent 550 height is well within industry practices. All the negative impacts of the 550 turbines just got a whole lot worse with 680 feet. You are giving up far more than ever can be gained. 4 years later, and here we still are. Please vote to deny the proposed changes to increase the maximum turbine height and reject the proposal to delete the 5-year SEP timeline. Enough is enough. Citizens have been coping with how bad is this going to be for years. The clear choice is a no vote to stop the madness for the citizens of Botetourt and your friends in surrounding counties. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. Anyone else there? All right, is there anyone on the phone line that wishes to speak?
If there's anybody on the phone that wants to provide some comments, please press 5* on your phone so we know to unmute your line. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to start unmuting at this time. Please,
anyone on the phone line?
Yes, my name is Steve Neese. You here? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Give your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Steve Neese. I live at 750 Morris Creek Road in Lexington, Virginia, just 2 miles from this project. I'm also an engineer. APAX is asking to raise the height of the turbines to 650 feet because of new technology. If you do a review of the new technology they are proposing, you will learn that none of these turbines have been deployed anywhere in the world. Some of them have been ordered in Europe, but not fully constructed in service. Obviously, they have not been deployed and tested in a mountaintop environment. Winds in the mountain environment are different than those experienced in the plains of central United States. While the winds in the Midwest are steady and typically in one direction, the winds on the mountaintops are gusty, rapidly changing direction, and turbulent, updrafts and changing direction frequently. These turbulent winds will apply huge stresses on the blades and the tower that cannot be modeled in engineering design. While having the tallest turbines in the United States might make good headlines for politicians, is allowing untested equipment in such a prominent location meeting your responsibility to protect the public. You should stick to the 550 feet high restriction until this taller new technology has been fully vetted and tested in a mountaintop environment by someone else other than the residents here in Virginia. That is the prudent approach to take. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else on the phone line? Anyone else on the phone line wishing to speak?
Please proceed. Yes, we can.
Yes, you can be heard.
This is Jeff Scott at 1023 Smoky Road, Lexington. The request by Apex to amend their special exception permit to the Botetourt wind ordinance should not even be on the agenda for today. The 2 most significant documents that need time to be carefully reviewed, which were the report from Missionary and the staff report, were not made available until late on May 6th. Another comment had not even been posted on the website as of today. In the short amount of time that I had to look at the report from Missionary, I concentrated on the research into the question of the impact of industrial wind turbines on property value. When the study cited was based on data from densely populated urban areas. Why the conclusions of the urban area study were described makes me wonder about the reason it was included. The last time I checked, I don't think Botetourt County is a densely populated urban area. As part of the suggested changes to the existing wind ordinance, Virginians for Responsible Energy submitted a set of documents in February that included many references. In the section of that submittal on the impact of industrial wind projects on property values, there are several references to studies that do show a negative impact. Those studies were not referenced in the entire report. Why is that? Speaking of the submittal by Virginians for Responsible Energy, have you read all of our documents that we submitted? You probably can't answer me at this point, but you need to please make sure that you do. When Virginians for Responsible Energy approached Ms. Pendleton about submitting an official request for changing the wind ordinance, she suggested that we save the application fee since the Board of Supervisors had charged her with reviewing the existing ordinance and simply provide her with suggested changes. Virginians for Responsible Energy did this, submitting a list of some significant improvements to the ordinance with a comprehensive set of references to justify the changes. Since none of the suggested changes are in the version of the ordinance being considered, Virginians for Responsible Energy assumes that all of the suggested changes were rejected. But we have not received any detailed information explaining why none of the suggested changes have been included. Should we have paid the application fee to ensure that the changes would be reviewed with the same thoroughness as the changes suggested by Apex? If the purpose of this meeting is to actually produce a wind ordinance that helps Botetourt County develop guidelines to regulate industrial wind projects and protect the county, why is it that none of the suggested changes from Virginians for Responsible Energy are included? You need to suspend the vote on the special exception and wind ordinance change request until you have sufficient time to thoroughly review all of the documents, all of the changes submitted by all of the parties, and all of the comments. Why just consider the changes wanted by a developer who is only interested in making money as a question to business practices and who has targeted the most environmentally and visually significant location in Botetourt County for destruction? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there others?
Mr. Chairman, there are 5 more callers. I'm going to leave the next person. Please proceed.
All right. Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Eileen Wool. I'm a staff member with the Sierra Club based in Virginia, in Richmond, Virginia.
What's your address? What's your address?
Richmond, Virginia.
Address.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's a city.
100 Franklin Street, Richmond, Virginia.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. On behalf of the Sierra Club Virginia chapter, we iterate both our support for the Rocky Forge Wind Project and our support for amending the county ordinance and the SCP permit to allow for newer, larger turbines to be used for the project. The Sierra Club, from the Roanoke Group to the Virginia chapter to our national organization, is not only committed to transitioning as soon as possible from dirty fossil fuels to clean energy, but also doing so in a way that is sensitive to the natural environment. Proper siting and good turbine designs are essential to any wind turbine project, and Apex Clean Energy has proved willing and able to meet those requirements. There are a number of positive elements surrounding this project. Let me just name 3 of them. Apex Clean Energy has proposed building 22 turbines on private property in Rocky Forge area adjacent to existing highways and transmission lines, eliminating the need for new infrastructure to be constructed. Much of the project site has previously been cleared, and the nearest home is a mile and a half away. The project complies with Sierra Club site-specific guidelines. The project follows a 14-point permitting process that is quite rigorous when it comes to safely managing potential impacts on wildlife. Apex Clean Energy is coordinating with federal and state wildlife agencies to make sure that the project is sited in an area where impacts to birds and bats are minimized and appropriately mitigated if necessary. And finally, the project will generate enough clean energy power to generate 21,000 homes, provide important tax revenue for the local economy, and land Botetourt County the honor of becoming Virginia's first wind farm project. Specific to the application before you, allowing for larger turbines means significant cost reductions as they operate more efficiently, harnessing the wind at taller hub heights, and thus reducing the overall number of turbines needed for the project. Wind power is quickly gated as one of the best answers to the climate crisis. Cities and counties around the country are signing on to commitments to 100% clean energy, and this year Virginia joins the ranks of the leading states in committing to a transition to a zero-carbon electric sector by 2050. Achieving these goals requires replacing fossil fuels with a combination of energy efficiency and renewable energy. Botetourt County Rocky Forge project will be, we hope, the first of many wind farms in Virginia, and we are pleased that it sets a strong precedent for future wind projects in the state. Thank you for your consideration of our comments, and we look forward.
Thank you for your comments. Any others on the line?
Hello, can I be heard?
Hello?
Hi, can I be heard? Am I online here?
You're online.
Thank you, I appreciate it. My name is Jonathan Miles. I live at 6905 Harvest Farms Lane in Crozet, Virginia, Albemarle County, and I'm a professor at James Madison University and executive director for the Center for the Advancement of Sustainable Energy. I'd like to open my comments by remarking that I appreciate the openness of this entire process. A couple callers ago suggested that comments from the Citizens for Responsible Energy hadn't been heard or incorporated. I felt very fortunate to have access to those comments some time ago and found them helpful and I think very informing, and I would suspect that the board did as well. Having said all that, I would like to point out that some 10 years ago or more, I served on the Department of Environmental Quality's RAP, or Regulatory Advisory Panel, to help define the rules for the current permit by rules. And the reason I feel this is relevant is that there's been quite a number of comments that are concerned or have expressed concerns about human health, about wildlife, impact on wildlife, other environmental impacts and concerns. I think it's worth remembering that the state permitting process, above and beyond the local ordinance and its requirement, is probably one of the most compelling in the country. It requires significant studies and mitigation planning, and really puts the developer in the position of having to be taking very careful steps to ensure the safety and the integrity and performance of a wind power plant such as is being proposed here. Wanted to make that point as well. I'd also like to just reiterate a couple of quotes from my own comments that I submitted, namely that this project, as now envisioned, will result in a more robust economic outlook than what had been proposed previously, would result in reduced operating and maintenance costs, certainly reduced impact on the environment and surroundings during installation and operations, and would, at the very worst, have comparable but probably lesser visual impacts despite the taller hub heights because of the fewer number of turbines to be installed. And along those lines, I think it's important to note that APEX's return to this process is critical because of the improvements in technology and practices. Previous commenter suggested that the notion that APEX would be installing new technology is something to be concerned about. I think it is important to note here that there are protocols in place to ensure that the new technology is indeed up to the challenge of performing in the conditions that are going to be enforced in this particular case. Finally, let me just again reiterate another comment that I had made.
I'm sorry, your time is up, and we're going to have to move along.
Thank you.
I appreciate your comments, and we also appreciate the fact that you submitted others.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the line?
There are three more callers, please hold. Caller, the line is unmuted.
Good evening, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hear you well. Name and address, please.
Great, yeah, John Scarborough, 532 Locust Bottom Road, Eagle Rock.
Thank you.
Thank you guys, appreciate the opportunity. I'm not gonna give a speech or, all the normal stuff you've already heard. I guess I'm just gonna run down a few things that I've been talking some notes while everyone was talking here. First one, kind of a question. I know that the county has met with Apex more than once at their offices. Have you guys met with the opposition at all? I don't believe you have. I know on the comment page, there's at least 10 comments missing that were con or against the project. So I hope those get distributed out to you guys. Most of the pros I see are from out of the county or related to the Fraley's or somehow involved with Apex, such as the Sierra Club, that professor that was just talking. So, you know, they talk about view sheds, but they don't have to look at it. They live in Richmond, they live in Crozet. Excuse me. I read in pros that our electric rates are going to go down. That's not true. Northam already said he's going to increase our rates to pay for renewable energy. There'll be very few permanent jobs, probably very few temporary jobs, because there aren't many companies in Botetourt that can construct these. I see two revenue streams, one for Fraley, one for Apex. The opposition has provided overwhelming evidence why we should move forward. The people for the wind towers, you know, I hear conservation, I hear tax money, I hear jobs. I don't believe any of it. It's not conservation when you blast the top of the mountain off. And back to the, I think it was the Sierra Club, said there'll be more wind farms. One of the letters I wrote to you guys said, we're going to open up Botetourt to windmills on every ridge line. I think they confirmed my point. That's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chairman, we have two more callers. As a reminder to the callers, if you have questions, please press 5* on your phone and we'll unmute your line one after the other. When you hear unmuted, please proceed with the comment. Next call, I'm going to unmute you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christopher West, 1611 Nottoway Avenue, Richmond. I'm the Executive Director of Conservatives for Clean Energy. We're a nonprofit advocacy group that strongly supports the development of clean energy technologies across the Commonwealth. We strongly support the Rocky Forge Wind Project and respectfully encourage the Planning Commission to endorse it as well. Rocky Forge Wind could be the Commonwealth's first onshore wind farm, and also which represents a very important step in Virginia's energy transition. Southwest Virginia is uniquely positioned to take the lead in onshore wind, and Rocky Forge is ideally suited to be our first wind farm. It is, of course, as you know, located on a remote tract of land in northern Botetourt and has a strong wind resources and is far from occupied homes. The construction of the project will support more than 250 temporary jobs, as well as 7 full-time permanent jobs. The project will generate enough power for up to 21,000 homes and provide a recurring stream of local revenue for county schools and essential government services, totaling in the tens of millions over the life of the project. The updated project plans will allow Rocky Forge to generate the same amount of power with fewer turbines while providing the same amount of tax revenue to the county. Adjusting the plans to accommodate the best available technology is the sort of thing any responsible business would do, and these adjustments assure that Rocky Forge creates the most possible value for Botetourt County and the Commonwealth. In 2015, this project was unanimously supported by the Botetourt County Board of Supervisors, and we respectfully hope that this project will receive the same kind of support this go round. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And I believe there's one more. Is there another speaker on the line?
Yes, there is. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, would you state your name and address, please?
Of course. This is Laura Fine from 3445 Seminole Trail. And I'm going to start off by quoting the Old Testament, Malachi 3:19, stating, "A day is coming that will burn like a furnace. Its remedy will be the sun's rays and wings." So I think that we all probably know that the other forms of energy, fracking and drilling for oil and coal mining, all really do destroy the earth, and it creates a lot of pollution. We're aware of that, and we've been made really aware of it recently by all the pictures across the world, including in our areas as well, that show that without the dirty fuel and the fossil fuels, the air is clear, people can breathe, the animals are all returning. And that's what we want. We want to keep it the way it is in terms of the conservation of the earth and the land and the animals and the wildlife and our water and our air being clean. So let's make use of this time. I think that Mother Nature is giving us a window right now, a unique opportunity. I'm very sad about the cost of lives in the process, but my God, she's tried fires and floods and earthquakes and nothing has worked. So I think this has been the last straw to show us humans what our choices are and how to change things now while we still have a chance to. So let's get rid of the endless federal subsidies and the state subsidies that prop up archaic, outmoded, failing industries that, like fossil fuel and fracking and all that. And let's change now to restructure all the energy grids. This is our time to do it. They're doing it all across the world. Why should we be the only ones not to be part of progress? In Austria, just yesterday, they canceled the last coal mines that are there, and instead they're using tracts of wind turbines, wind farms, like what we're talking about here in Botetourt. And same in France. In France now they have up to 8 acres of nothing but wind turbines, and it's covering all the costs. Job losses in the fossil fuel industry would be more than offset in the renewable energy by focusing on these wind turbines. It's already being done elsewhere, Colorado and everywhere. Every dollar spent on decarbonized energy transition would yield billions of dollars by eliminating the cost of climate change devastation and the deadly global impacts of air pollution, and from forest fires and from the storms that have come from disrupting the earth. This may not be perfect, the wind turbines, but this is the closest thing what we've got. And it's
thank you for your comments. The time is up, and thank you for your comment.
Thank you so much, sirs.
Is there another call on the line?
Mr. Chairman, we have 2 more callers, and we're going to move the next caller, please hold.
Thank you.
Caller, please proceed.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Would you state your name and address, please?
Bruce Scott, 1023 Smoky Road, Lexington.
Thank you.
I would just like to comment on the statement by the Sierra Club representative. And if you look at the National Sierra Club website, where they have quite a bit of information about appropriate areas for these industrial wind facilities, the statement they made, and I'm quoting, says, the Sierra Club opposes development in protected areas such as national and state parks, national monuments, wilderness areas, wildlife refuges, designated lowland areas, critical habitat, and designated habitat recovery areas for wildlife, and areas of cultural significance, sacred lands, and other areas that have, emphasize this, special, scenic, natural, or environmental value. In these areas, it is inappropriate to build wind turbines, roads, transmission lines, or any other structure related to wind development. I don't know how you could be clearer than that statement. And for the local Virginia chapter of the Sierra Club and the local chapter of the Sierra Club in Roanoke to endorse this project and say that it is nearly as perfect as you can get. He wrote, the fellow, Dan, I think is his first name, the local Sierra Club in Roanoke, wrote an op-ed in the Roanoke Times that stated how this was the most perfect site possible for this project, totally ignoring what the National Sierra Club has to say about what is an appropriate area for wind turbines. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Now, I believe we have one more on the line.
That is correct. I'm going to unmute you. Please proceed.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, and staff. My name is Sherry Smith Crumley. I live at 2917 Tree Bark Road, Buchanan.
Thank you.
My husband and I are conservationists. We have put our 380 acres of land in Botetourt County in a conservation easement. Wildlife and its habitat is one of the most important things in our lives. I served 9 years on the board of the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, and I am currently serving my 14th year on the national board of the National Wild Turkey Federation. We are conservationists. I am in favor of the county amending the SEP permit to allow for the newer, more efficient wind turbines. The proposed wind farm will be located on a property of several thousand acres owned by one family in a rural part of Botetourt County. In my opinion, wind energy is the least invasive form of energy. The effect on wildlife will be minimal. In fact, more birds die by hitting the windows of homes than will be hurt by the turbines, according to the American Bird Conservancy. The wind farm will have relatively little impact on the land where it is proposed. Having known the Fraley family for over 30 years, I know how important and how passionate they are about wildlife, and they would do nothing to hurt the wildlife that they have spent 40 plus years creating habitat for. I hope that you will approve this amended SCP permit and let our county lead the way in wind energy in Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other on the line who have? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing and discuss this among ourselves. We've got a picture back. Questions or discussions, ideas, motions? We've heard a lot of information there.
Is the representative of Apex here today?
So Mr. Nicely, we are, I'm not sure if they wish to speak on the text amendments or not, but we have another presentation on the actual Rocky Ford project after the text amendment, or we could move into presentation of that. We just want to make sure those are two separate action items.
What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
I prefer to keep it separate, I think, so it doesn't get so confusing.
Sounds good.
Okay, I agree with you, Mr. Foster. Any other comments from any of the other commissioners? All right. Having heard the comments and the information provided by Ms. Pendleton, do we have a motion?
I'm just having a tough time getting rid of our 5-year SEP. However, I think that we need to send it on to the board. And certainly I'll have some more questions a little later. Apex's representative, of course, and we have digested a lot of information. Folks out there have done a lot of hard work. They're friends and neighbors of ours, and we are looking at fewer turbines and all that, but I certainly respect all the comments, and but I think we need to at least see this through, allow the board to take a real hard look at it. I'll move into text amendments to Chapter 25, Section 446, Wind Energy Systems as attached to the report prepared by staff and forwarded to the board with a recommendation of approval. The recommendation is made on the basis that the requirements of Section 25, 58.1, 581.1,
The zoning ordinance has been satisfied that the proposal will serve the public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Is there a second or question or discussion?
Can we spell out that SEP completely one more time, please? I don't have it.
But, repeat that. That wasn't clear.
As far as the two separate items, can we identify the one, this one we're voting on again, please?
We're voting now on the text amendment.
The specific, like I don't have it in front of me.
You see it in your package, and as part of your, it's part of the agenda. Item B.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Turbines, did you get the information you needed?
I did, thank you very much.
All right. I'm sorry, someone. Mr. Knightley?
Yes.
Your motion, is there a second to that motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Powell.
Is there any possibility,
Yeah,
I know it might be a little odd question, but is there any possibility we can separate those? There's two proposed text amendments. Can we separate those and vote on those separately?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
I'm feeling okay about one of them. I'm not feeling okay about the other one. And just wondering if we could vote on those separately and possibly give the Board of Supervisors a little better direction.
You want to, Mr. Knightley, do you want to amend your motion or give them clarity on what Mr. Kidd is saying?
As far as, I thought we were voting on the text amendment regarding wind energy separately from the other text amendment on the cluster development. What other text amendment?
Well, we've got B and C. Are we voting on B separately from C?
Yes.
Yes.
I guess what my question is, I'm not trying to confuse everybody. I'm not trying to confuse everybody, but there's two proposed text amendments. My question is, can we separate the two proposed text amendments and vote on each one of those separately, under B.
There should be three, Mr. Kidd, or three sections.
Excuse me, there is three.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
And you're proposing to break those three out to?
I'm not sure. What I'd like to break out is the expiration of the 5-year term limit. And I might be doing wrong in looking at it that way. But let's just keep them wrapped together that way.
Yeah, I think that's what Mr. Knightley was speaking to is, before he made the motion.
Yeah, I mean, I could amend the motion and we could vote on the three separate. That's fine with me. We can vote on individually of the three.
What does the rest of the planning commission think?
I don't have a problem with that. I would like some information on the 100 feet of the equipment and, structures. I'm not sure what it was prior to the amendment.
It's an addition, Mr. Foster. It wasn't in the ordinance previously.
Okay. Okay.
All right, is it a consensus, among the commission members that we vote on each of these three parts of B text amendments?
Separately?
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
Anybody disagree? Okay, that's the way we'll take them. Mr. Knightley, would you like to address each of those individually?
Okay, I'm looking at amendment number 1 is utility scale wind energy system requirements.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm just wondering about voting on a couple of these without having talked with HVAC representatives. Is that throwing a wrench into it too?
I don't, in my opinion, I don't think so. I understand what you're saying, where you're coming from on that. I'm all for waiting until we kind of hear everything out before we vote. I can go with you on that.
I'll take that recommendation. I tend to agree with you, Mr. Kidd, and also with Mr. Knightley. Why don't we move to C and hear that, and then we'll revisit B once we've had an opportunity to hear C thoroughly and question A. Do we all agree?
Sounds good to me, Mr. Chairman.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I'm okay.
Okay, that's the way we will proceed.
Sounds like a plan. Mr. Pearson, I'll leave the presentation back up on screen.
Please hold on the transcript.
All right, thank you. I will, for the benefit of those on the phone, I'll go ahead and read this legal advertisement. So Fred Stanley, restated irrevocable dynasty trust of Jerry L. Fraley, Rocky Forge Wind LLC, which is a subsidiary of Apex Clean Energy Incorporated, requests to change the conditions to a previously approved special exception permit, SEP, to construct a utility-scale wind energy system in the Forest Conservation Use District. The project is sited on a portion of 3 tracts, tax parcel 13-2, containing 5,092.14 acres, tax parcel 20-3, containing 1,512.526 acres, and tax parcel number 23A, which contains 7.96 acres. Approximately 200 acres located within these boundaries will be utilized for a maximum of 22 wind turbines and ancillary equipment and the related construction, operation, and maintenance of a utility-scale wind energy system. The applicants are requesting for Chapter 25, Article 4, Supplemental Regulations, Division 1, Use Regulations, Section 25-446, Wind Energy System of the Botetourt County Code to reduce the number of permitted turbines from a maximum of 25 to a maximum of 22, and to modify the existing conditions related to constructing turbines at a taller height to be no greater than 680 feet in height. The project is proposed to be located along approximately 3.5 miles of the southernmost portion of North Mountain, with an entrance generally located on the north side of secondary Route 622, which is Dagger Spring Road, approximately 5.2 miles east of the intersection of Route 622 and secondary Route 694, which is Gala Loop, to be accessed by a proposed gravel road identified on the real property identification map of Botetourt County at Section 13, Parcel 2, and Section 20, Parcels 3 and 3A. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is a concept matter, an aerial photograph which depicts the site that's outlined in red. Next slide, please. You will see that this particular parcel and those all around it are known FC, Forest Conservation. There's predominantly agricultural A1 and FC, and then also the property is bounded by National Forest and Rockridge counties as well. Next slide. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the process again. In October, well, first in 2016, January 26, 2016, the SCT was approved with 17 conditions for the construction of a utility-scale wind energy system at a maximum of 25 turbines at 506 feet. On October 31st, 2019, Apex Clean Energy and Jerry Fraley filed a request to amend those conditions. At that time, as the ordinance did not allow for turbines of that height, the application was considered incomplete by the zoning administrator. On February 25th of 2020, the Board of Supervisors authorized staff to procure an independent consultant and move forward at the discretion of the zoning administrator, deeming that application complete in order to process it for public hearing. That occurred on March 9th, 2020. Next slide, please. Okay. So I want to give a project summary. Again, the approval that was granted in 2016 is still valid today. Those 17 conditions which were approved in the package have not yet been met because some of those conditions are not yet part of a site plan application, which could still be filed today. Building permits could be filed today. With the approval of administrative review, that particular project can be constructed as approved. Again, as part of tonight's request, there are two applications before you, which first is the text amendment. Now we are moving on to discuss special exception permit. So the application to amend the previously approved condition states that the updates are related to the increase in height of the turbine and the maximum anticipated capacity of each, and the related decrease in the number of turbines. As a result, a revised shadow flicker study, sound model, concept plan, visual impact analysis, operations and maintenance plan information, environmental inventory and impact statement, historic and cultural resource assessment, a post-construction sound analysis, shadow flicker analysis, and decommissioning plan were included and to take into consideration a scenario in which there would be 22 turbines at 680 feet in height rather than the currently approved 550. However, the applicant also states that the number of turbines will likely decrease dramatically as the turbines approach the new maximum height of 680 feet. In their application, the applicant provided a table of examples of turbines with generator capacity, number of turbines, and total height that ranged from 492 feet to 675 feet in height. Next slide, please. As happened in 2016, a third-party consultant was procured at the expense of the applicant to perform an independent review of the application. In addition to the information provided by the applicant, the Antares Group and their sub, CHP, reviewed the existing ordinance, the proposed change of conditions, specific questions raised by the Board of Supervisors, revisions to the existing code which was presented by the public, the original application, as well as the approved permit by rule document, which from the state CQ. Next slide. The Antares Group is on hand also to make a presentation, as well as representatives from Apex Clean Energy, but the findings from the third party, which Ms. Heidi Albrook is available via phone to present at the conclusion of this presentation. The increased turbine height included in the application is in line with industry trends. The trends in the industry are clearly moving towards larger wind turbines, which larger meaning taller towers and bigger rotor diameters, which do have advantages from an energy production standpoint. However, the originally permitted 550-foot height does not represent obsolete technology. More than half of the wind turbine applications filed with the FAA in the first part of 2019 were for turbines with a total height of less than 500 feet. If the board does not make any modifications to the height conditions associated with the SCT, the original 550-foot height limit would mean that it is much more likely that the project will have 25 wind turbines as in the original application, rather than the 22 to 13 proposed by Apex in their current application. For example, the configuration that they provided at 22 turbines would have a total turbine height of 551 feet, although Apex also presents a 20 turbine configuration that has a total turbine height of 492 feet. The board may find it worthwhile to consider a 1-foot height increase in exchange for fewer turbines. While reducing the number of turbine locations would decrease the impact to the immediate area of the project site, there is a trade-off, and that is taller turbines would increase the overall visibility of the project, which is demonstrated in the visual impact assessment. Next slide, please. Additional information provided by Antares that talks about the rationale for the trend using taller towers because the height places the swept areas of the rotor in areas of stronger and less turbulent winds. The larger rotors allow for a greater swept area and more energy generation per turbine. Based on that, Apex's request appears to be in line with industry trends, but 2 points are clear. Apex is considering using rotors notably larger diameter than average, as well as a hub height in some of the larger configurations it provided that is taller than average. In the extreme, this is leading to the possibility of the turbines being large even by recent installation standards. Additionally, the originally permitted 550 feet height is still well within current industry practices. Next slide. Generally, staff agrees with the findings in the report, but as with the original SCT request, staff's main concern with the application is the conceptual layout of the majority of the features identified. Staff expressed concern to Antares again, as they did in 2016, regarding how the studies and models would change if turbines were sited in different locations, were smaller, or were fewer in number, all of which would be considerable changes to the project. Staff has concerns with the lack of specificity with regards to the turbine models and height, which again results in a lack of specificity in the submitted revised concept plan. If the request to modify the original conditions are approved, staff suggests replacing the conditions with any combination in whole or in part of those provided by staff. The conditions that are provided were derived from conditions as submitted by the applicant, reviewed by interiors and staff, and the Planning Commission may also review the availability of alternative custom height and turbine scenarios identified by the applicant to determine whether an alternative to the applicant's request is more appropriate for the subject location. Next slide. Additionally, there are 17 conditions that were provided in the background report prepared by staff, which were updated based on the applicant's request. Any of these conditions can be modified. Conditions can be added by the Planning Commission or deleted by the Planning Commission, and it's at the pleasure of the Planning Commission, the recommended conditions that they may wish to send to the Board of Supervisors with whatever recommendation they deem appropriate to make. I will, next slide here, thank you. We'll comment very briefly before we talk about the public comment, though, that the way that conditions work is the next step in the process. If there were an approval, there are many things that would need to happen in order for a project to move forward to being construction. And I'll go into detail on that in just a second. I hope I have another slide for you all. At 6:44 p.m. on Sunday, there were 43 comment letters or comment notes that were supportive of the SEP changes, and there were 55 in opposition. Next slide. Right, so again, in summary, the project can move forward through the permitting phase at the county level as it was originally approved in 2016. If approved, with the recommended conditions or any conditions the Planning Commission deems appropriate, there would still need to be compliance with all state and federal regulations. Apex would need to revise their application, their permit by rule application, and receive approval from DEQ at the state level. And all necessary studies, models, and plans would need to be updated and provided with actual turbine models and specifications in order for any of the reviews to take place at the county level. So this means subdivision plat review, site plan review, or any building permit application. So at that point, the conditions which are related to the provision of site plan application would come into effect at that point in time, not sooner. Drew, I'm not sure if I have another slide. You advance one more time. Okay. That would conclude. Let me make sure there's nothing else in my background report. Again, my presentation this evening to you all, commissioners, is based on the premise that the application was approved in 2016 with those conditions in place, and the request today is the modification of that. And so at this time, I will be happy to answer any questions that you all have, and also just again let you know that Ms. Heidi Allsbrook is on the line, as well as I believe Charlie Johnson is on the line from Apex Clean Energy. So.
Thank you very much, Nicole. That was a good bringing us up to date on this project. Questions, gentlemen?
This is Sam. I have one question. If we were to approve this, and there are approximately 13 turbines as opposed to 22, is that going to reduce the amount of coverage on the top of the mountain? Would it be a shorter distance or still extend out the same amount? If that makes sense.
It does, and I believe the applicant can speak to that. And again, if you may condition anything related to that you would wish to, if that were something that you would want to add.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions for Nicole?
Yeah, Nicole, on the site we have the staff recommended conditions stated today. those 17, is that was just on the screen?
Yes, well, those were the general topic of each one of the conditions, and they've all been updated.
Right, but so these are they mirrors of the original 17?
They are similar to the original 17. There have been some revisions and some updates to.
So these will completely supersede that, correct?
Oh yeah, they would replace them. That's correct.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Other questions? Hearing none, we'll move to the public. Yeah. Okay. Heidi, would you like to speak to the findings? Hello?
I can do that, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, as Nicole mentioned, my name is Heidi Albrecht. I'm a senior project manager with the Antares Group. Antares is a consulting and engineering firm that has been in existence since 1992 with an exclusive focus on renewable energy. And we assist clients at the level of state, federal, and local government in policy development and program support. And we have extensive experience in renewable energy consulting with the private sector, including feasibility analysis, project management, and project development, as well as providing owner's engineering services for a variety of mature and emerging renewable energy technologies. We conducted the initial independent review of Apex's application for a special exception permit. And I presented our findings to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors in 2016, along with a list of recommended conditions for approval. In February of this year, we were asked to update our technical review based on the revised application for special exception permit that was submitted by Apex and identify any issues that require additional research and provide recommendations for developer or county action. We also had DHC provide supplemental environmental review. We provided our list of summary comments as well as a recommendation of additional conditions. As Nicole said, one of the main questions that was asked of us was whether the 680-foot height limit was in line with industry trends. We conducted some background research based on permit applications filed with the FAA and published data from the Department of Energy on installed wind projects up through early 2019 that were published in the 2018 Wind Energy Market Report, and found that the trends in the industry are clearly moving towards larger wind turbines, taller towers, bigger rotor diameters, and they do have advantages for energy production. However, the originally permitted 550-foot height limit is not obsolete technology, as the whole state is more than half of the wind turbine applications filed with the FAA in the first part of 2019 were for a total height of less than 500 feet. Apex presented a range of configurations ranging from 22 to 13 wind turbines and 492 feet to the 680-foot limit. So you can see that there are still a range of new to the market, current technology turbines that exist below the 550-foot limit. As you get taller, that's when you start reducing the number of proposed turbines down to 13, when you have the much bigger turbines with much larger generators. One thing we want to make sure that the Planning Commission and the board understands is that when you start to have the 550-foot limit, you are going to be limiting what you can get out of these turbines. We know that the technical feasibility of this project and the energy production potential are of a concern because you want this thing to be viable, and larger turbines, taller towers allow the developer to harvest more energy. We also recognize that you have an interest in ensuring that you preserve county characteristics that you value. So as we know, the taller turbines would increase overall visibility. The aspects of the project, which include the shadow flicker model and sound modeling, do remain in line with the limits that were proposed in the conditions to the special exception permit before. And those would need to again be demonstrated that they were met by any configuration that is presented for site plan approval. The other main considerations that we had were related to decommissioning plan, the decommissioning plan and the decommissioning cost estimate report, because the county does want to make sure that their interest in ensuring any project that is no longer operational is decommissioned will be able to be decommissioned. So we include several recommended conditions related to that, including evaluation of where waste could be transported outside of the 30-mile radius that's assumed in the decommissioning report. Since, as people have noted, the Botetourt County Landfill will be closed by the end of this project's life. We also recommend that the operations and maintenance plan addresses replacement and disposal costs for any components that reach end of life prior to the end of the turbine's life. We want to make sure that the decommissioning plan specifies how waste generated by decommissioning activities, including sawdust or byproducts of cutting turbine blades, will be addressed in a way that minimizes potential impacts to the project site. And we also want to make sure that the decommissioning surety that the developer must provide to the county is calculated for the decommissioning costs, not including potential salvage value, rather than the net cost after salvage.
All right. Any other comments, Heidi?
None at this time.
All right. Do we have any questions, Heidi?
Yeah, I've got one or two.
All right, go ahead.
Mr. Thurman, how you mentioned the decommissioning estimates. So your suggestion is to not recognize the salvageable value of the parts. Is that from what we saw in the report?
Right. Well, what we recommend is that you base your surety on the estimated total cost of decommissioning, not including the potential salvage value. And the rationale for that is that one of the main reasons for the decommissioning surety to exist is so that if for some reason the project owner is unable to decommission it, the funds are available for the county to oversee that activity. So if you subtract out the potential salvage value, then you are having a substantially reduced pool of money. And as you can see, reading in the decommissioning report and in our report, especially when you start looking at these turbines with exceptionally large towers, the steel value is a very, very large component of this estimated salvage value. So this is a specialty activity that requires specialty equipment and specialty skills, since you basically have to reverse construct the turbine. And you want to make sure that your surety allows this to happen regardless of what estimated value has been for any of these commodities. And somebody has to be hired. And whether or not the person who is doing the decommissioning activity will be able to be paid after that salvage value has been realized is a question that you don't want to have to wrangle with if you are left holding the bag on this project.
Exactly. Not to mention they're very volatile. Can be the pricing structure can be very volatile at that particular time.
Precisely. And you do have provisions that it must be updated every 3 years. But at the same time, we recommend that you base your surety on the total cost of decommissioning.
I got you. Another question you may or may not be able to answer. Are there land-based wind turbines this height in use in the U.S.? Or great?
I don't know where they are specifically now. What I reviewed was the data that was largely focused on what had been built in 2018 and through the first part of 2019 in our report. Let me just flip through what I have here. So in page 8 of the Antares report, I've included a graph and a table of the turbine hub height by commercial operation year, showing the trend in turbine hub height increase, and you can see what percentage of turbine hub height, which are roughly the tower height, fall within these ranges. So you can see that in 2018, 1.6% of the installed towers were over 100 meters in height, which is 328 feet. Well, when you start talking about the large rotors, which combined will help you get to that 680 foot, let's see, those are much more common. 30% of the installed projects had rotor diameters that were in excess of 120 meters, and 56.9% of these projects had rotors between 110 and 120 meters. Larger rotors mean larger swept tower area and more power generation. So that is definitely a trend. But there are fewer projects that have combined both of these very, very large towers and very, very large rotor diameters, although that is the direction that the industry is moving.
Right. Other questions? Thank you, Mrs. Allbrook. Now we'll have Charlie Johnson with Apex come to the mic.
Chairman, we have his
Yes,
presentation, and we will need to ask Mr. Pearson to move forward with this. Yep, there we go. Scott, he's on it. Thank you.
Can you all hear me okay?
Mr. Johnson, yes, would you just state your name again for us and give us your address?
Yes, sir. This is Charlie Johnson with Apex Clean Energy, 310 4th Street Northeast, Suite 300, Charlottesville, Virginia. Sure thing. Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, I appreciate the time this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions you have from the previous portion of the meeting as well. As I said, I'm Charlie Johnson. I'm the project manager for the Rocky Ford Wind Project. I've been working on this project for pretty much as long as we've been working with Botetourt. I've mostly been working in the Mid-Atlantic since I started at Apex back in 2013. And as you might remember, I stood before you in 2016 as well. I believe it was the end of 2015 for this project, for our regional improvement. I've got a few slides here. I won't dig into the details that have been covered. I did want to just highlight a few things for you on what we're asking of the county at this stage of the process. So Drew, next slide, please. So real quick, just quick background on Apex. We are a national company headquartered in Charlottesville, Virginia. So this project means a lot to our company. We develop, we construct, and we operate projects around the country, both utility scale wind and solar. As you can see all the dots on the map, they vary between operating projects, both wind and solar, as well as development assets, both wind and solar. Next slide, please. Just a quick snip of some of the numbers. We've got over 1,200 wind turbines currently operating in the U.S. That we are either operating or developed. That's including solar as well. Almost 3 gigawatts of projects completed, which represents, I think, almost $6 billion in investment. Our operating staff is currently managing about $2 billion
worth of assets around the country and in Canada. Next slide, please. I won't harp on this, but this just shows kind of a track record of our company and all the projects we've developed. Some of the notables would be the 2 IKEA wind projects, one in Illinois and one in Texas, which they purchased from us to offset their North American utility consumption of electricity. And we still operate those projects under the Apex banner. So Apex trucks are on site for those projects day in, day out. And then another notable on the solar side, as well as wind, we did a contract with the U.S. Army down in Fort Hood. We are the Fort's retail electric supplier for all of their energy, with both an on-site solar project as well as an off-site wind energy project. Next slide, please. Just some of the benefits of this project, just to reiterate, some of the folks have mentioned all the support that we've had for this project, both locally and at the state level. The project has a lot of environmental benefits, whether that's offset of CO2 or preservation of land for traditional development. The domestic energy supply, this project has the capability to produce up to 21,000 homes with electricity. That's utilizing some of the newer technology that has come out in these turbines. And there's significant economic benefits, whether that's local taxes, whether it's cash infusion during construction. All of the folks that are working on this wind farm have to eat, have to stay in hotels. They will be bringing money to the community during the construction period as well as operation. And then lastly, just the advanced development of this project. We've been hard at work on it for years now. There's been a lot of progress made, and at this point, we're kind of entering into the final phase of for the project. Next slide, please. This is just a quick snapshot of some of the groups that have endorsed the project, both locally and the state. Next slide, please.
Just to reiterate that, Charlie did a comment, we lost our signal. All right, I think we're back in business. Go ahead, Joe.
Yes, sir. This is just to reiterate the open process that this project has seen. We've been covered in the news since 2014 with the Run of Times. So just want to commend the work that the county has done to make sure that this process stays open to the public eye. Next slide, please. This has been touched on some tonight. I just want to reiterate some of the benefits of construction jobs. By nature, project construction is a temporary job, going from project to project. But what these projects can bring, outside of the highly technical installation of a turbine, there is a lot of road construction, road updates. There is concrete being poured, whether that's local companies like Foxley or others that are providing those local parts of the construction process. And there's a lot of standard construction that can be utilized. And this part of Virginia has those capabilities to utilize that locally. Then operationally, we're looking at about 6 to 7 jobs at the project. They will be living in the area, working at the project site every day, not an operation maintenance building, doing traditional just making sure the turbines are operating and functioning correctly. Next slide, please. Just a couple more of the highlights of the ancillary benefits of projects like these. Educational opportunities are largely a big one. I know some of you all, some of the board members have gone to visit wind projects over in West Virginia. There's many of the projects do site tours. Folks up in at Big Level wind project in Pennsylvania have also do tours as well. That's the project using some of the newer technologies as well. I'll mention that. Next slide, please. Heidi went through a lot of this with some of the work that we've shown with the turbine consideration for compliance with living parameters. I just want to reiterate, we've been measuring wind on this site for almost, I think it's over 200 months now of data that we've collected on the site. So we have a very good idea of what this site can produce. compiled with the new technology, and that's where we come up with our numbers for the equivalent number of homes. We have received authorization from the Department of Environmental Quality under the conditions approved in 2016 by the county. But we will be going back to them for modification, should it be in the interest of Botetourt to allow for taller turbines. Next slide, please. This is one of the later details that came out last year that we had signed a power purchase agreement for the project. That is one of the three main pieces for projects to be completed. So that was something we were working on very hard. In the meantime, since the original permit approval was working to find a buyer for the power. This is a new type of power in Virginia, and this would be the first utility scale wind project in the Commonwealth. We were very excited to have our own state government to be a part of this project through Dominion, bringing the support for this project all the way up to the state level. Next slide, please. So the request before you has been gone through, but essentially we're asking for both the zoning text level as well as the permit amendment to utilize the taller technology and turbines that is emerging on the market, as well as extending our permit to allow for construction operation. We're targeting currently the end of 2021 for operation. And then just allowing us to shift the net tower on the site with the height up to the turbine hub height, which is where the blades are attached to it. Next slide, please. So Heidi touched on a lot of this. I'm happy to answer questions on this as well, but I'll try to cover it. So as she said, the turbines are getting larger. It's one thing to be looking at what is installed versus the projects that are towards the end of development right now. I can tell you that a lot of our projects, we are looking at turbines in this range of going larger with larger nameplate capacity. To give a few examples of the technology that's already been introduced, there's West Texas A&M installed a turbine in Texas as far back as May of 2018 with 653-foot tip height. And as I mentioned, Big Level Wind Farm in Pennsylvania, they have turbines over 650 feet as well. That's a 90 megawatt project. And just of note, this kind of leads into the next piece, but as you reach the top tip of the turbine, that's the least visual piece of a turbine itself. So the blades are actually, at the last 30 feet or so, the blade is actually only about 4 feet diameter, or in width, I'm sorry. So what you really depict with the eye is at the hub height of the turbine, or where the blades are connected to the tower. Next slide, please. This was mentioned by Nicole. We did want to provide just some of the turbine options that we are looking at. By nature, this is a tough part of our industry because the turbines are not chosen until very late in the financing of a project. That's just due to the amount of turbines on the market, as well as the availability at the time of year that the project is going through financing. Turbines typically operate on an annual basis, with most of your deposits going in spring and early summer. And then by the end of the year, your turbine options diminish dramatically because the turbine vendors are either sold out or they're looking towards the next year's technology before starting sales. Next slide, please. This is just a snapshot out of the visual impact study showing the closest neighbor to the project. This neighbor, as you mentioned earlier, is supportive of the project. He's just over a mile away from any proposed turbine location. And as you can see between the top and the bottom, the top is the previous approval of 25 turbines at a 550-foot tip height, and the bottom picture is a maximum of 22 turbines shown at a maximum height of 680 feet, which we propose to actually build fewer if we go to that height, based on those examples that we've shown in our application. So you can see it's a pretty minimal change to the eye, just given the structure height to start. Next slide, please. It might be tough to see on the screens, but it's also in the application. The difference that you're seeing here is the pink is where either turbine could be visible, noting that the distance dramatically affects the visibility of the turbine, as well as topography, which is taken into account here. But the tree cover, buildings, humidity, air quality, you name it, are not taken into account with this. So in the impact study, you can see some of the further pictures are tougher to depict what the turbines look like from that distance. It's just based on topography of flat Earth or bald Earth. Next slide, please. These are just showing our current timeline that we're hoping for. We're hoping to be operational by the end of 21. But we have asked for an extension for 2 years just to cover any sort of delays that could come during the construction process. Next slide. And I'm happy to answer questions. I'm sure you guys.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Our questions, gentlemen?
Well, I'll ask the question I asked you earlier about if you do 13 as opposed to 22, are you taking as much land space for the 13 as you do the 22?
Yes, sir. Thanks for the question. The short answer is no. The ridge line currently contemplated is about 3.5 miles. If we were to reduce the turbines enough, we would not use a lot of that ridge line, but we would also spread out the turbines. We have to comply with the county separation based on the riverside as well, which is next to the ordinance. So you're not utilizing some of the ridge line, and you're also reducing the amount of turbine locations, thus reducing the environmental impact in terms of the number of turbines.
Okay.
Other questions?
Thank you.
How many turbines do you anticipate if we go to 680?
So it's tough to nail it down at this point exactly. That turbine table that I showed, Drew, that's slide 15 if you want to go to that.
Is that the answer to his question?
No, sir. I was going to walk you through this real quick. So essentially, we are looking at turbines in the 4.5 to 5.5, 5.6 range. So I would say anywhere from 13 to 18 turbines is probably where we'll end up. That's not to say that a smaller turbine might not be considered, just based on market availability and market pricing, as you will. We do run competitive processes for turbines as well. Does that help answer your question?
I think so. How about, are your right-of-ways and easements, are they secured yet?
So we are finalizing the remaining ones. We've been asked that question as well. So with our current project design, we have signed up the landowners in question with the exception of one, which we are in active negotiations with, and it's closed out this month. That's not to say that small things here or there during the construction process might need updates with the landowners, but we've got long-standing relationships with them and are comfortable that we come to agreement with small changes as we did.
How soon do you, I'm having a tough time getting rid of the 5-year time limit, but if we put a condition on, how soon do you think you can get a site plan and that type of thing to planning and zoning and, get the site plan approved?
So getting it approved is, I can't speak to when it would be approved, but our hope would be to be starting the site plan administrative process with the county outside of what's already been worked on the erosion sediment control side with VDOT. I would expect we would do that late summer with the hope that we could start construction by the end of the year. But that's just pending any sort of delays that could come. We still have a review at the state level for these amendments if Botetourt passes them. And our original expectation was that the permit we would have to be under construction by the end of the permit time frame, not just submitted to the county.
What's the definition of under construction? I mean, I'm not splitting hairs here, but where do you think that you have to be if you don't get an extension on time?
We define.
I'm very sorry, I'm gonna get them to stop and we're gonna correct this, just a moment.
Welcome to conference call. We will now connect you to your call. Please say your name.
Auditory. Everyone, they've taken a 5-minute recess. If you would like to get up, use the restroom, whatever, you may take that time.
Excuse me, sir. I'm with the Roanoke Times, and I wanted to use part of your comments that you made on the text amendment. And I want to make sure I had your last name spelled right. Is that it? Is it, you go by Bill or William?
William.
This,
You need a copy of it? Yeah. My big takeaway is that I would take 25 years. Really. Eventually someone's going to succeed in Washington State. They can do some stuff and get there. You know, but I thought the citation in my lady from Oxford, some of their friends that I think not very much in my Steve Kennedy always was a military school, but this man, he was in the military stuff. He always was a military.
Well, thanks for your.
Okay, no problem.
This is what you did.
That was exactly my
Just wanted to let everybody know they're returning from recess, and they will begin resume the meeting shortly.
Mr. Chairman, the light has been unmuted at this time. You may proceed.
Okay. All right, we seem to be back in business for asking questions to Mr. Johnson. Are there further questions of Mr. Johnson?
Yes, I still have one or two.
Okay.
Mr. Johnson, did you say you do have turbines, or you're aware of turbines in Pennsylvania that are like 650 feet tall?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is that, you know, we had a question come up about the volatility of the wind in Rocky Forge compared to some of the other locations. Are you aware of where those turbines are? Is it a fluctuating wind direction like we should be experiencing?
I don't know exactly the wind parameters up at that project, but it is a ridgeline project. I would assume pretty similar to what we do here. That's part of our analysis, both in-house and with the manufacturer, for them to warranty their product at a specific site. They have to be comfortable that the turbine is suitable for the very specific wind patterns that we see. That's why we take the data at the site for so long. Otherwise, the manufacturer wouldn't even tell you the turbine because they wouldn't warranty their product at that site.
There'd be no concern between the manufacturer and you guys as to the durability of a turbine at that height in this location?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, I saw in some literature it was talking about two-piece wind blades. When they get large like this, is that what we'd be looking at most likely?
Not necessarily. The GE turbine that's 5.5 megawatts, that we put some literature in the application, they're one of the first to consider that technology, which just puts an ease on transportation to the facility.
Right.
That's an extremely emerging technology, so I'm not sure if they'll fully have that capability right in time.
And the construction of the blades is fiberglass, is that correct?
I believe mostly, yes, sir. There's a lot of fiberglass used.
Okay. And then one other question, I'll let you be. I don't remember the accessory building, substation, whatever, height of 100 feet, or, accessory buildings on site. That necessity, I don't remember seeing that on the field trip we took. Is that something new, technology-wise?
Not necessarily. That's just based off of the configuration. It's at the substation, so there's anticipated to be one backbone structure which would tie into the existing transmission line that runs through the property. That structure, in working with Dominion, because Dominion would be the ultimate owner of that substation, it's on their grid. Their typical site plans for this sort of substation, when using that backbone structure, include a taller structure to time it.
Okay.
So it's both that and based on the topography going through there, that they would need a tall structure.
Okay. All right.
I would note too that the substation location is at the very bottom of the mountain. It's in kind of a hole, if you will.
Oh, it's not up with the turbine?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, other questions? Everybody got other questions in? Okay, with that so, we'll now open the public hearing for change of conditions on utility scale wind for Fairleigh and Rocky Forge Wind LLC. Before making your comments, please state your name and address, and first comments will be heard from here at Greenfield. Remember the 3-minute time limit. And first one up in Greenfield, if you would approach the podium.
I just wanted to let you know that we had a power failure or a IT problem in here. We never heard the answer to one of the questions, so I want to re-ask the question. What is the definition of the start of construction? I'd like to hear the answer again, thank you.
I didn't hear that question.
One of the board members was asking the question again.
Mr. Turbine asked question.
Yeah, actually, the boots on the ground was his comment. So that would be, as I remember, I'm sorry, getting some backlash.
Again, so everybody can hear it.
Can you hear me now?
I'm not hearing.
Yes.
There's nothing coming through the auditorium.
Yes, we can hear.
Okay.
I'm asking Mr. Johnson to answer that question again, so the people in the auditorium can hear it.
Thank you.
Mrs. Johnson, can you hear me? Mrs. Johnson, I've got you on YouTube. Please proceed.
Okay, the answer to the gentleman's question, we consider the start of construction to be the formal notice to proceed when given to the BOP contractor. So once the contractor starts work on the ground, that's when we start defining that.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Go ahead, Mr. Collins.
That was all.
Mr. Collins, do you have anything else?
No, sir.
Thank you. Next speaker. Is there another speaker in the auditorium?
No, sir, there does not appear to be any other speakers.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody on the line who would like to speak to this?
If you would like to provide some comments, please press asterisk, star on the phone, so we can reach you. Go ahead, Colin.
Is there a caller there?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, sorry, the system's a little confusing. We should probably try a different conference call provider when we do this again. But hey, so I made comments earlier. This is John Scarborough again, 532 Locust Bottom. I'm kind of curious of what questions were asked when the phone was on mute. What were you talking about with the Apex representative? And then number two, so you know, it was going to be 25 turbines, and now it was 22. And then as I sit here and listen, it's 13 to 18. It doesn't really sound like Apex really has a clear plan of what they want to do. They're just waving money at you guys and looking for an approval. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that, but I'm interested to know the answer. So exactly what were you guys talking about when we couldn't hear you?
Well, we didn't. We took a 5-minute restroom break, and while they were doing some technical work to make sure that the sound was coming in to all the different offices that were spread out in.
I got you. So did I misunderstand? I thought I heard someone say that you were asking Charlie questions while you were on break.
No, that's not so.
Oh, okay, I guess I misunderstood. Yeah, okay. All right, well, that's all I have. Thank you, John.
You're welcome. Anyone else there?
We have one more caller, calling up in our region. Please proceed.
Hello? Hello, caller, would you state your name and address?
Jeff Scott, 1023 Smoky Road, Lexington.
Go ahead.
All right. One of the claims made by Apex to justify the destruction of the top of North Mountain is that Rocky Forge will produce enough energy to power up to 20,000 homes. The 2019 Statement of Intent, in the wind study section on page 4, the following statement is made. Evaluation of wind data collected to date has demonstrated that the average wind speed is between 13.2 and 18.5 miles per hour to 125-meter up height. This average wind speed is considered a strong wind resource in Virginia. There are these three problems with this statement. One, an average is not a range of values, it is a single value. What is written is like saying a batting average is between 256 and 225. It's a meaningless statement. Two, the statement is misleading in that it implies that wind is blowing all the time. The reality is that those are the most common speeds of the wind when it is blowing. Three, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory has a lot of research into the factors that determine the amount of electricity that a wind turbine can generate at different speeds. And they have a chart. I have an attachment in the comment I submitted. It shows resource potential at various wind speeds. The chart shows the wind speed of 13.2, which is the low number quoted, has a low potential. And the speed of 18.5 miles per hour is the higher number provided, has an excellent potential. That's quite a wide range. So you really need to know the distribution of those speeds. That is, how often does a particular speed occur in order to determine the potential for generating electricity. And typically, the distribution will show that lower speed winds are more frequent than higher speeds. So to claim there is a strong wind resource seems to be a distortion of the facts. Beyond problems with that statement, Apex neglected to mention a significant factor that determines the amount of energy a turbine can generate at a specific speed. And that factor is turbulence intensity. Basically a measure of how turbulent the wind is at a site. More turbulent the wind, the less efficient the turbine is. There's no documenting that winds on a mountain ridge are much more turbulent than winds on flatter land. And it also can lead to varying loads on the turbine, which causes them to wear out more quickly, and that can lead to higher failure rates and catastrophic failure resulting in fire or collapse of the turbine. Now, the real problem here is Apex has not made the wind data they collected available to the public, calling it proprietary. Since when is the wind proprietary? They make claims about the amount of electricity that will be generated, but they refuse to provide the wind speed data for independent analysis. What are they hiding? Apex has not built Rocky Forge because they could not find a buyer for the paltry and intermittent electricity that it will generate. Not until Dominion and Virginia signed a renewable energy statement, and Dominion needed to have a component of that to be wind, did Apex get a buyer. And the amount of electricity that Rocky Forge will generate, claimed to 75 megawatts, is a drop in the bucket, less than 3% in comparison to the 2,600 megawatts that will be generated by the coastal Virginia offshore wind project. So someone did a great job.
Thank you. That's time up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the line?
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I do not show anything else if you'd like to comment.
All done?
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right. We will close the public hearing and discuss all the information that we have before us, keeping in mind that we will address the earlier proposals on text amendment first and then move to the change that has been requested by Apex for the construct for the special exception. Why don't we go back and begin with the text amendment? Any thoughts since hearing the presentations that you've heard?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the text amendments, Chapter 25, Section 446, Wind Energy Systems as attached to the report prepared by staff with the following changes before to the Board of Supervisors. all of the, conditions, which are 16 at this point in time. Add one other additional condition that we must have an approved site approval within 1 year. Mr. Kidd wanted to address the three in proposed text amendments, one at a time. So I guess that's going to be the turbine height. Would be the first one. The second one is 100 feet for the equipment and structure for substations, facilities, and assumed towers. And then the other is to delete the 5-year time limit.
Let's begin with the first one.
Mr. Knightley?
Yes.
Yes. I forget there's two. It would be okay with me to wrap those back up if we can do something with the special exception time option. I mean, we can wrap all those back together, or we can do it separately, either one.
I think we could, do them all together if, we come to some agreement on what that should be, on that release.
It'd be acceptable to say that recommend denying the, deleting the 5-year time limit?
I think that would be appropriate. Any comments, Mr. Wilson?
I agree.
Mr. Nicely, Mr. B. Nicely, I understand the motion just for the secretary entering it into the record. You're recommending or making a motion that the text amendments should go forward as staff recommended for the height and the interconnection, and then you are recommending that the 5-year operational timeline remain within the text amendment and not be removed.
No, I'm thinking, saying to, remove the expiration.
Okay, so you are making a motion that it would go forward as recommended by staff, and you're going to make another motion that deals with the time limit with the expiration of the SCP. It was an additional condition in the next motion. Does that wrap it up?
That's correct. It would be an additional, condition.
Okay.
Good.
And basically deny the 5-year time limit of eliminating it from the code.
Is there?
So if you took that out, then somewhere in the future, if someone else wanted to put up towers, the 5-year timeline would not be there. Is that correct?
No, it would still be there. We're just taking it out of, this change.
So, if I might add a point of clarification, if you leave it in there, then there's still there's an expectation that the operation of the wind farm must be operational within 5 years of the granting of the special exception permit. That is the way the text amendment is currently written. That's the way the code is currently written today. So the 5-year timeline, if you do not delete that section of the ordinance, would still apply. If you delete that section of the ordinance as recommended by staff and then add a condition to the SCP, you may deal with the expiration of the SCP through the condition. and not have a perceived conflict.
Nicole, if I may clarify as well,
Thank you.
correct me if I'm wrong, currently, there's a specific provision in the code as a 5-year limit for these systems. There's a general code provision for future validity in the code that provides that you can change the time limit. So if you delete the specific one from this one, you go to the general one, which provides that you can provide shorter time frames or longer time frames as necessary. That makes just a little confusing because we're deleting. But deleting the 5-year timeline does not mean there is no timeline. It means it reverts to the default, which now is a little more flexible. Is that right, Nicole?
Yes, thank you. So the section that staff is recommending deleting exists in the wind energy ordinance under 446. There's another section of the code that exists for all SEPs, which will allow you to impose a condition to reduce the timeline and make it shorter than 5 years. But in order to do that, you need to delete the section in 446 so that 583D2 is applicable. I think that's what we're trying to explain.
Okay, that is understood now.
Good. I think that clears it up. Mr. Kidd, does that clear that up with you?
Yep.
Okay. Now, Mr. Knightley, can you state that motion to include that?
I move that the text amendments, chapter 25, section 446, wind energy systems as attached to the report prepared by staff with the following changes be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval, and that includes the 16 staff recommendations of conditions and the one additional one for 1 year site approval.
That, Mr. Nicely, I'm sorry, that would be a separate motion. So the first motion that needs to be taken specific to the text amendments only, and then another motion on the special exception permit with the attached conditions. 2 motions are required.
Right.
Okay. Let's just I move the text amendments to chapter 25, 446, wind energy as attached, prepared by staff before the Board of Supervisors recommendation of approval. This recommendation is made on the basis that the requirements of section 25.581.1 the zoning ordinance have been satisfied that the proposal will serve the public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and is within zoning practice. Does that get it?
That does it. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Further discussion? Questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Howell Nicely?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Kidd?
Yes.
Mr. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Brandon Nicely?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, now, the question before you is on C, request to change the conditions to the previously approved special exception permit. You have the report from the third party and report by Mr. Johnson and the input from the public in each of the cases as we've heard from this evening, plus those that have been sent in earlier to staff.
we may be going a little higher, but hopefully we'll have maybe some less turbines. Again, I appreciate everybody's hard work on this, staff, and all the folks who spoke tonight and sent us emails and texts and all that good stuff. I understand, I will probably be seeing these, if they come to fruition, I'll be seeing them every day myself. I move that the revised conditions for a special exception permit for utility scale wind energy system on property of Fraley family restated irrevocable dynasty trust and Gary L. Fraley be forwarded to the board with recommendation of approval with conditions provided in the background report prepared by staff.
Second.
Yep.
Motion and second, are there any questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Howell, Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Kidd?
Yes.
Mr. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Brandon Nicely?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, all the participants here tonight. You made a very difficult situation much easier. I appreciate the technicians and the staff for all the work they put into this and making sure that we were safe in doing our job, and hopefully everyone who's participating feels the same way that they've been in a safe environment tonight. We will conclude business unless anyone has anything to add. Hearing nothing, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time.
See you later.